Next thing we are looking at with respect to what are the various factors that are affecting with respect to choice of channel. So under that we have something like the cost, the capital requirements, controlling the channels, coverage, character as well as the continuity. So cost is the one thing which usually will be considered by most of the organization with respect to selecting a particular channel. So most of the cases organization will always look at the possibilities where they can reduce the cost. And apart from that, they also look at the capital investment in terms of managing the required infrastructure for the smooth movement of goods and services. And after this, they wanted to look at the various controlling aspects that are very much key, especially in case of distribution channel. And coverage is the next big challenges where the normal channel patterns will not be able to meet up with the coverage, especially in case of international market. So your distribution network should be very broad in nature so that it should able to cover the larger part of your markets. And the character and continuity are the other important factors that majorly contributes with respect to affecting the choice of channels. And when we talk in terms of distribution, always we are not supposed to forget something called as warehousing, wherein which warehousing basically constitutes an important segment of physical distribution management, where you require your warehouse to have ample space inside it just to accommodate more quantity of products and services. It's not only accommodating the quantity but also storing the product in a right way is also another biggest challenge for most of the companies, because we all know that different product requires different type of storage patterns, and utmost care should be taken that your warehouse are following all the standing orders or the required parameters that needs to be followed in order to make sure that products are being safeguarded by giving it with utmost priority. And the need for warehousing is a corporate module that may always arise for the following reasons, just to make sure that in what way these models are able to meet up with expectations of the distribution functions. And the next thing is we need to look at what are the major necessity of warehousing for export marketing. The one thing is to break the bulk and reassembly, because warehousing always gives an ample opportunity to break your products into different variants, and this breaked product always can be reassembled once the product reaches to the destination. And even the storage of the products will also makes it more feasible, because if you break the product or the product is being it is being dismantled, and again it can be reassembled at the point where it has to reach to the destination. And there are certain products which are mainly based on seasonalities, and based on that season the products has to be taken out from the warehouse and it should reach to the right point at the right seasons, because in the market we can always expect there is a variation in demand, and that is a very key factor that most of the companies would always like to look at with respect to looking at the variation in demand. And we have something like speculations and product conditioning, which are also another key important factors of key important factors. And next thing is when we look at the transportation pattern, even the air transportation also plays a very important role in these cases, because most of the time we see or we look at the things, and air transportation always provides an ample opportunity for the manufacturer, so that the the movement of goods and services usually fasten up once the company try to involve something like air transportation system. And in most of the cases this sort of transportation will be used for products which are highly perishable in its nature, and it plays a vital role with respect to facilitating the economic growth, particularly in case of developing countries, and it also makes essential factors for the global business tourism development. And when we talk in terms of the advantages of air transportation, it basically contributes towards low inventory carrying cost and decreased capital cost of goods, especially in transit, less packaging and lower cost, and reduces the chargeable weight. And related to surface transport, costs are always reduced, and the loss due to rough handling and pilferage is reduced to the minimum. And the breakage can also be expected to be very negligible because utmost care will be taken, especially in case of air transportation. And deterioration can always be avoided because of the quickness of the transportation, where it requires very less time to reach even the farthest of the farthest places if the company is accompanying something like air transportation. And we also have something like the insurance premium will also be reduced because of the breakage will be very much negligible, and the cost related to the administration, ordering, etc., can also be minimized if a company is trying to apply something like air transportation system. And when we look at the different bodies which usually takes care of exports, especially in India, we have something like institutional infrastructure for export promotion in India, which is wholly being owned by something like Government of India, which has set up several institutions where the main functions are to help the exporters in his work. And government always takes very collective steps in order to make sure that the country's exportation is always been given key priorities, because we all know that a country can become a developed country only if the exports are more. And these companies always take corrective steps in order to make sure that imports are less and exports are more. And this usually motivates most of the companies to take exports very seriously. And these are a few of the things that which makes this organization very strong in the market, to make sure that how well they are able to contact the people who are in manufacturing, and how to motivate them uh, to export more and more products across the border. And apart from that, these institutions always provide some of the efforts which are significantly important, there should be a very good combined efforts from both Department of Commerce and Ministry of Commerce and Industries. And deliberative and consultative organizations should always be given more priority. And we should able to make sure that there are different organizations which are basically coming up with respect to commodity specifications, and we need to give more and more importance for different service institutions which are existing in the market, wherein which service also plays a very important role, if at all, if you want to give more priorities for exports. And the government trading organization should also put their efforts in making sure that how well they are able to cope up with the competition that are existing in the market. And along with that, we are supposed to give utmost priority for most of the service institutions, which rather they would contribute for the major chunk of revenue generation. And government trading organizations should always support the upcoming exporting companies, so that they should get all the facilities what and all they can get from the governmental side. And here the most or the biggest hurdle is with respect to documentation, which are the documents that are required, and what are the scalability with respect to making that company fit enough to be called as exporting organization. And these agencies should always start promoting these activities right at the bottom of the chart, like from the state level. And if the company is able to match up with their expectations, then they should take that thing to the next level, and leaving them to export their products to the other nations. And this company should also educate the organization that what are the advantages of exporting, how well the company can develop itself if they follow this export criteria and all. And this is one of the biggest challenge where organizations should always motivate themselves and give more priorities for exporting.